It all began on what seemed like an ordinary Friday evening, the kind Maria and I had come to cherish over the years. We had a tradition. Every few weeks, we'd host a casual backyard hangout with a few close friends. It was our way of shaking off the week, catching up on each other's lives, and keeping our friendships alive. Nothing fancy, just laughter, conversation, and a little warmth under the stars. The evening had all the right ingredients. The aroma of seasoned meat sizzling on the grill mixed with the soft crackle of charcoal and the cool, calming night air. Around us, the steady hum of chatter mingled with bursts of laughter, forming a soundtrack of contentment. The table was a familiar spread: bowls of chips, spicy salsa, creamy dips, bottles of beer and wine. Maria's signature margaritas that everyone adored. We formed a loose semicircle around the patio table, drinks in hand, swapping lighthearted stories about work, kids, and everything in between. Maria and I were in sync. She floated between guests with ease, charming, quick-witted, glowing. I played the laid-back husband at the grill, making sure no one's glass went empty. We had been married for over a decade, and despite life's usual bumps, I truly believe we were good. Really good. Our relationship had depth, built on road trips through the night, sleepy Sunday mornings over coffee. A million little jokes only the two of us understood. Of course, we had arguments now and then about dirty dishes, forgotten dates, but I thought those were just part of being married, nothing serious. That night, surrounded by laughter and warm lights we'd hung together years ago, I had no reason to think anything was wrong. If anything, I felt proud of the life we'd built, the love we'd held on to. But looking back, I see it now. The cracks were wider than I realized, and with one unexpected sentence, everything began to unravel. Dinner was ready. The smoky scent of grilled meat floated through the backyard, mixing with laughter and clinking glasses. Plates moved from hand to hand, piled high with juicy chicken, beef, and colorful sides. The glow of patio lights cast a golden hue over everything, making the moment feel almost cinematic. Then my plate arrived. I looked down and froze for a second. The piece of meat on it was ridiculously small. Barely enough for a single bite. I held it up, chuckling, trying to turn it into a joke. "Wow, Maria," I called out, smiling. "This is the smallest piece here. What, am I on a diet or something?" My tone was playful, the kind meant to get a laugh. I glanced at her, expecting a sassy reply, maybe an eye roll, but her smile shifted, tight, knowing. She leaned forward, voice clear and sharp, slicing through the evening air. "Well, isn't that fitting?" she said. "It matches how little you are down there." Silence. Everything froze. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. The laughter vanished like smoke in the wind. The warmth that had wrapped around the evening was gone in an instant. I stood there, still holding that tiny piece of meat, my grin wilting as something heavy settled in my chest. I tried desperately to convince myself it was just a joke, a bad one, but still a joke. Yet there was no humor in her voice, no trace of playfulness, just deliberate sharpness, measured, cutting. I stared at her, searching for something, regret, apology, anything. But her face was unreadable, calm, cold. There was no flicker of remorse, no hint that she just humiliated me in front of everyone. And just like that, the air shifted. The backyard didn't feel like ours anymore. The lights still glowed, the food still smelled delicious, but the joy was gone. All that remained was a silence so loud it ached. I could feel the discomfort rippling through our friends as they shifted in their seats, suddenly fascinated by their food or drinks, doing everything they could to avoid looking at me. It was the kind of silence that didn't just settle, it smothered. They pretended not to hear, but we all knew they had. Her words had sliced through the evening like a blade. No amount of awkward laughter or diverted glances could erase them. I swallowed hard, staring at the pathetically small piece of meat on my plate. It now felt like a cruel metaphor. Mocking, almost poetic in how it mirrored the way I suddenly felt. Small, exposed, and insignificant. My chest tightened. a cocktail of humiliation and disbelief flooding through me. This wasn't just anyone. This was Maria, my wife, the person who, above all, was supposed to protect my dignity, not dismantle it in front of our closest friends. She had used the one insecurity I had fought for years to bury, the one I guarded silently and fiercely, to land a blow, and she did it with a smile, a laugh, as if it was nothing. I let out a shaky chuckle, trying to regain some grip on the moment, but my voice betrayed me. It sounded hollow, brittle. "Good one?" I muttered, barely audible, more to myself than anyone else. I looked down again, willing the moment to pass, to reverse, to disappear. Maybe she was annoyed. Maybe I had unknowingly said something to provoke her. Maybe this was her version of getting back at me. But none of that mattered. All I knew was that I had been humiliated by the one person I never expected it from. I forced a thin smile and said something vague about checking the grill, excusing myself before the heat in my face could betray the sting in my heart. The walk to the grill felt longer than usual, each step heavy, each breath tight in my throat. I turned the skewers with robotic motions, hoping the sizzle and smoke would drown out her voice in my mind. But it didn't work. I could still hear her, clear as day. Light, joking, cruel, delivering that blow like it was a casual punchline. A part of me wanted to turn around, to confront her, to demand an explanation, a retraction, anything. But I couldn't bring myself to face them again. Not yet. Not while my pride was still bleeding out in silence. So I stayed at the grill far longer than I needed to. It became my refuge, my shield, as I blinked away the sting of unshed tears and tried to swallow the lump in my throat. That night, after everyone had left, I couldn't bring myself to say anything to her. I just went to the couch and lay there, staring at the ceiling, the words looping through my mind like a song I hated but couldn't turn off. Growing up, I had wrestled with insecurities about my size. It wasn't something I ever talked about, not to friends, not to her. It started early, with jokes in locker rooms, whispered comments in gym class, and moments that stuck like burrs under my skin. I built defenses over time. Humor, false confidence, deflection. I told myself I was more than what people saw, more than just physical metrics. And for a while, I believed I had buried those doubts deep enough to forget they ever existed. But that night, Maria unearthed them in a single sentence. I lay there wondering how long she had thought that about me. Were there other times she'd bitten her tongue, hidden her disappointment behind kisses, laughter, affection? I replayed our most intimate moments in my mind, combing through them like a detective. Had I missed something? Had there always been a trace of discontent in her eyes that I refused to see? What crushed me wasn't just what she said, but what it revealed, not about me, but about her, about the way she saw me, maybe even the way she had always seen me. The next morning she apologized, said it was a stupid comment, a joke that slipped out in the moment, that she didn't mean it. But I couldn't shake it. Every time I looked at her, I heard those words echoing in my head. I wondered if she had ever really respected me, or if she'd been carrying around quiet disappointment this whole time. I tried to move past it, tried to tell myself it was just a one-time mistake, but the truth gnawed at me. This wasn't new. Her words that night weren't isolated. They were the climax of something I had been trying not to see for years. Maria had a way of disguising criticism and charm. She'd make little jabs at my job when I wasn't around, poke fun at my routines at parties, make comments about my hobbies that cut just a bit too deep. On their own, those moments had felt trivial. I had shrugged them off as teasing, but now they lined up like breadcrumbs, leading me to a truth I could no longer avoid. I hadn't wanted to see it at first, but that comment on that fateful Friday night wasn't just a careless quip. It was a harsh revelation, a glimpse into how deeply normalized belittling had become in our relationship. Maria noticed the change in me almost immediately. The silence, the distance, the way I stopped reaching for her hand or laughing at her jokes. It was impossible to hide. At first she was confused, maybe even a little defensive, But soon, guilt began to show in her actions. She tried everything to make amends. She cooked my favorite meals, filling the house with the warm, familiar smells of dishes that used to bring me comfort. She planned elaborate date nights, booking tables at restaurants she knew I loved, acting like if she could just recreate joy, it might replace the pain. Compliments followed. Too many, too quickly. Like she thought stacking them high enough would bury the damage. But it didn't work. Her efforts felt hollow, like placing fragile band-aids over a wound too deep to reach. Every kind word she said was drowned out by the memory of her voice that night. Sharp, unkind, and unforgettable. Worse still, her sudden affection made me question everything. Was this who she truly was? Or had I been loving a mask, one she wore so well in the early days, before the jabs became routine? That night wasn't just humiliating, it shattered something. It forced me to look at our entire relationship through a lens I had avoided for years. I started replaying old moments like reels in my mind, the times she made jokes at my expense, the laughs I forced just to keep the peace, the comments I waved off because I didn't want to seem too sensitive. Now, all those moments formed a pattern. They weren't isolated. They were building blocks, stacked one on top of the other until they became a wall. An emotional barrier I couldn't climb, no matter how hard I tried. And it didn't just hurt, it shook everything I thought I knew about us. Every time I looked at her, I didn't see the woman I married. I saw someone who had slowly chipped away at me. And the hardest part was realizing she may not even understand what she had done. One evening, after yet another dinner drowned in silence, she finally broke the tension. "Robert, please," she said, her voice trembling. "Talk to me. I don't understand why you're still so upset. I've apologized 100 times. It was a stupid joke. Why are you holding on to this?" I looked at her, struggling to find words that would make her understand. My voice cracked as the truth slipped out. "You don't get it, do you?" I said. "It wasn't just a joke, Maria. It was that you said it in front of everyone. You humiliated me. And it's not just what you said, it's what it meant. That's my deepest insecurity." Her expression softened. For a brief moment, I thought maybe she saw it. Really saw it. "Robert," she said gently, "I didn't know you felt that way. You've never said anything about this before." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to see me differently," I admitted, the words tumbling out like a confession. "I didn't want you to think less of me. But now I can't help but feel like maybe you always have." Her apology sounded genuine, but it couldn't unbreak what was broken. The cracks in our marriage, ones we had both ignored for years, were suddenly undeniable. Small disagreements over chores or plans spiraled into full-blown arguments. The trust we had built felt shaken to its core, and neither of us seemed to know how to fix it. Eventually, I realized I couldn't keep living like that. One night, I quietly packed a bag. When Maria saw me, her voice trembled. "What are you doing?" she asked, her eyes already glistening. "I'm leaving," I said softly, avoiding her gaze. "I need time to think. I can't do this anymore." "Robert, please," she cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You're leaving because of a stupid joke?" "It's not just the joke," I said, zipping my bag. "It was the spark, but the fire was already there. I've been unhappy for a long time, and I didn't even realize it until now." After I left, Maria tried to reach out. Calls, texts, long messages, pouring with apologies and pleas. But I couldn't bring myself to answer. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I needed space to process everything. What started as a few days turned into weeks and then months. The silence stretched, not out of spite, but out of necessity. I was unraveling years of emotions, some I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. And slowly, painfully, I came to understand something I had been too scared to admit. I couldn't go back. When I finally called her, my voice was heavy with the weight of everything we'd lost. "We can work through this. We can fix it." I closed my eyes, swallowing hard. "I don't think I can ever forget what you said." My voice cracked. "It's not just about The size thing, it's about trust, about respect. I thought you saw me as strong, as whole, as enough. But now I just feel like you've always seen me as less. And I can't live with that. The divorce papers came a month later. I remember holding them in my hands, heart pounding, hands trembling. It was the hardest decision I had ever made. But deep down, I knew it was the right one.